I'm Coach Ses. Welcome to the Mad World. Hey, look, I want to talk about some things today that are in my heart, on my mind. So first of all, I want to shout out all the people who have recently competed in anything, whether it be MMA, Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu, no-gi, judo on our local level. Had a lot of guys go out in the last month or so, do a lot of amazing things. Shout out to Matt Zamora out of Team R.O.C. Of course, the guys from a couple weeks ago, Isaiah Monroe, Featherweight King, Jadanis Edwards. Big things coming up for those guys. Big things coming up for Devon Blackshear. So much going on, not just for the guys in the gym, but a lot of guys at other gyms coming back with world championships from the IBJJF tournament over the weekend. We've got a lot of guys just doing a lot of amazing things in our local area. A lot of big fights coming up. Elias Briley taking on Jacob Ashley. That's going to be an awesome fight. Just saw Brian Pooh Bear Battle defeat Don Terry Woods at the Ultimate Battlegrounds. I love big men, so that was an amazing outcome for him. He was getting blasted for most of the round, and I think with something like 45 seconds left, he was able to pull it out. So shout out to Pooh Bear for becoming a two-time champ. And if you think of anything, hit my timeline up. I'm just so excited right now because it's good, big news for a lot of the guys on the local scene. A lot of guys doing a lot of good things. I got a seminar coming up with Ken Armstrong at the Super Rhino Gym in Virginia. So check my timeline out, and you can get the dates and the times. I believe it's September 8th, and I think we're going to start at about 11. We've got some amazing content and material for you guys. I want to get away from the whole here's the technique type seminar, because there's so many of those, all right? And there's so many guys out there who are really good at it. So I don't want to be another guy that just comes in and is just a small fish in that big pond. I actually want to bring something that I feel like is missing, and I want to bring something that I feel like is going to be a value to you coming from my experience. And that thing is, there's so many fighters who execute wonderful techniques in the cage, in the gym on pads, sometimes against a familiar opponent or training partner, sometimes against the bags. Within your confines, you do very well, but when you make it to the fight, something's missing. So what is that thing that you're missing? And that thing that you're missing could be your composure. And people know how to train the kick, they know how to train the punch, they can train the takedown, they can train the submission, but they don't always know how to train the composure. And when you do see it, yes, when you see it, a lot of times it's a fighter who's been out there for quite a while and he's developed it over time. I'm here to tell you that I can get you to have that same level of composure within a short period of time, all right? It's just overlooked. It's just a step that needs to be trained daily. It's just overlooked. That's all it is. And when I'm at the seminar, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how to train while under constant threat to improve your skill, all right? So give you a basic concept of how this works. You have to create a framework within your gym where there's a structure where the advanced guys and the low-end guys meet somewhere in the middle. If you don't do that, then you're always going to have these guys following, and it may take them 2 to 3 times the amount of time they really need to get to the same level. If you pull these guys back just a little bit to pull these guys with them, not only do you pull these guys up in a shorter period of time, you also have a team that's twice as talented in a shorter period of time, all right? So make sure you check that out. I'll be putting out some tidbits and videos and things of that nature leading up to September 8th. I also have seminar set with Jomo Lucas with Rock Bottom Athletics. I believe that is September 15th, the following weekend. So just stay tuned and keep track of my schedules, because I'm going to be adding locations. Some will take place during the week. I haven't worked out all the details with the people that I've been contacting, so some will take place during the week, and these will be smaller workshops, but you're still more than welcome to check me out. And I want to make sure that I'm getting out and putting the word out so that everybody can change up how they're training. Most people, most instructors, I hate to say this, but they don't like to step outside of their comfort zone because they feel as if what they're doing is already working. And I think where the failure is that we don't always look at the situation and say, hey, I'm not an expert at this. This person may be better at that than I am. And so they don't go that direction. So that's what I'm trying to get you to do, is follow that direction. I feel like I just have more training experience in developing a fighter, and it has very little to nothing to do with the way you throw a punch, the way you do a takedown, or how you choke somebody out. We want to make sure that you keep the 5 elements of all techniques: your posture, position, timing, distance, and balance. If you focus on these things and train them throughout the process, then it'll be very difficult for you to break down in a fight. Right? Not impossible, but very difficult. So that's what we're trying to do, and that's what I want to help you with. So again, if you have any questions, hit me up on my timeline or inbox me. I can give you a little bit more details. But I would really love for you to come out and attend the training, because that's where the magic happens, is when it's live, when I can work with you individually, and I can work with you live and get you to change, and I can do it in a short period of time. If you give me half an hour, I can make a difference from when you first walked into the door. And this is not one of those, oh, I can make you 10 times better than that. That's bullshit. That's not what I'm trying to get after. When you hear guys talking about they're gonna make you 10 times better, it's bullshit. I'll tell you why. Because they have to know where you are to begin with. I'm going to, first of all, give you an assessment of what you can do, and it may already be great. You just may not be capitalizing on it. I remember the first time an instructor ever told me, hey, you've got good hand speed. I think I was 3 or 4 instructors in, and that was the first guy that told me that. And that was the only tidbit that I needed. I didn't need a new program. I didn't need to go to a series of seminars. I didn't need to start doing hand speed training. He just says, you already have it, start using it. And sometimes that's all it takes, is for somebody with an educated eye to look at your game and say, hey, why don't you start doing this? And that's what I found in most of these gyms. They have the striking instructor they need. They have the grappling instructor, the wrestling instructor, the boxing, the Muay Thai, the judo instructor. They have all of that in place. So then you say, well, why aren't they winning fights? And what I've discovered is that they don't have everything in the correct order. And they don't always give a proper place to the instructor at the time, at the moment. So certain instructors should be in charge, but they're not. Certain instructors who take charge should learn to take the back seat and give way to some of the others. And in a lot of gyms, this happens because the coach is older, or it's his place, but it's an insecurity there. He doesn't want to yield to someone who's a little bit younger. He feels threatened. They know something he doesn't know. I'll give you a story. Jason Palacios, he and I used to teach together at Team Rock Fayetteville. That's a very special relationship for me, okay? Because prior to Jason Palacios, I never had to co-coach with anyone. Now, I've had some one-offs, like my buddy Robbie Adams. I've co-coached with Billy Dowie at a school. Somebody, I forget the situation, but they needed a fill-in. Billy filled in for the grappling, I filled in for the striking that night, and we did a co-coach. And but these are one-offs. And so working with Jason, this was continuous, for several years. And what I really learned from that situation was that I am comfortable with what I do. I am comfortable with my process. And over the years, that's what I've discovered, is that most people aren't comfortable. Here's the caveat, here's the catch. They aren't comfortable because they don't have a process. That's right. They just go along day to day. Now, this doesn't mean that what they do is bullshit. What they do is just kind of go along, and they don't really have an order. The way they do things, they don't know how to look at your flexibility and say, hey, we're going to make you stronger. in your dynamic stretching or your dynamic flexibility or your static flexibility, or should we improve the flexibility in your hips or the flexibility in your knees? They don't know how to look at it because they never had to before. So they just continue to do what they're doing and the way they've always done it. So Palacios comes in and he says, hey man, and I had met him before, doing some training sessions or whatever, leading up to us co-coaching. And so he says, hey, Greg said that I can start coaching and teaching here with you at the exact same time. And I shook his hand, and in real time it was like, hey, no problem, welcome aboard. But for a split second, I shook his hand, and in my mind there was like this dialogue that goes, I am very comfortable in who I am, and I think this guy could be very good. And I was blown away. I was shocked because he was so young. I'm about, I think I was about 12, 13 years older than him at the time. And I know what it was like to be that young coach, because I remember when I was in my 20s, and anytime I'd be coaching somewhere, there'd always be the old guy, hey, you're doing this wrong. You shouldn't do this. And that's not the image that I wanted to project or into the gym or on him. I wanted to be different. I wanted to have a situation where I was encouraging, all right? There may be some things that I didn't like, but I wanted to encourage, all right? And I wanted to have an open dialogue. And I think that's why that relationship was so special to me, because it was the best. We had an open dialogue. And one of the things that we did that was magical that I encourage all of you guys to do, first of all, start co-coaching, all right? If you have multiple coaches in your gym, there's nothing wrong with having a particular session, especially your MMA session, where, depending on what the time limit is, where you give half of it to one coach and half of it to the other. And if you've been coaching long enough together, you just mingle it, all right? So the magic happened when, and so far, he's one of only one or two coaches that I can really do this with. I took his class. That's the secret. I went on there. So how it worked, it really was not set format. There was no, I'll do Mondays, you do Wednesdays. There was none of that. It was more like, one of us would take the lead, and then the other guy would be his assistant. Or if we had an off person, that person would fill in as the sparring partner or the training partner for that person. And it just became a dynamic, and it stayed that way. And it continued to be that way in the gym. I would help someone on one day, then the next day he would help, or I'd be his demonstrator, he'd be my demonstrator. And it just became this natural thing in the gym, and it was easy to take one another's class. We became very familiar with what each guy liked to do. Certain terminology was established, and the key factor there is that we almost began to read one another's minds. That was the great part. So there would be days where, especially back then, I worked in a security company, so I had to do audits, and about twice a year, where a whole week where I couldn't be there. And so I did a security audit one week, and when I came back, I was like, okay, we're gonna start with the clinch to the takedown, blah, 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 blah. And Jason wasn't there, and all the guys who were there, they were just standing around dumbfounded, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? They were like, Coach just went over this, and there was no way I could know that. And that happened on more than one occasion when guys would tell me that story. He'd come back when I was, I teach for a couple of months or whatever, and he had to take a week off. And then when he came back, I had to take that week off, and he'd just fill in right there. And they said, man, that's amazing. Coach just went over this. And we just got to the point where we could just piggyback off one another's techniques and mechanics and dynamics. So make sure that you, at some point in time, to advance your career, regardless of whether you are a certified instructor, a black belt, a world champion, or whatever your status is, make sure you add that to your resume, that you co-coach. That is a very difficult skill, but it's a wonderful skill to have. If you're not doing it, you're doing it wrong. All right, I'm telling you right now.